Welcome to Let's Talk About Gay Stuff. Woo! Let's talk about gay stuff.
That's our intro jingle?
Yeah.
Wow.
The podcast where we talk about gay stuff and discuss the week in LGBT plus history. We are Thomas.
Tony.
Kendall.
Howdy, everybody. How's it going?
Hey.
How's the week going?
Hungry.
Amazing.
Well, this week we're going to be reviewing the week of September 15th through September 21st, and we'll discuss Will and Grace, so their premiere back in 1998, The Daughters of Bilitis, and the It Gets Better campaign that Mr. Savage kicked off back some years ago. So I think these are going to be very fun topics. I'm looking forward to all of them, especially Will and Grace, because that's my favorite show.
Less somber than last week's topic. 9/11.
Wah,
That
wah.
was pretty, yeah. It was 9/11. What else did we talked about?
I can never remember.
It was overshadowed.
Yeah, 9/11 was pretty deep.
I think mine was light. I can't remember.
No one remembers the topic.
Yours was
I have
Golden-
Alzheimer's.
Golden
you know,
Girls.
Golden Girls.
Oh,
Your
oh my
favorite
God.
girl.
How could I forget?
Wah, wah, wah,
That proves I
wah.
have Alzheimer's.
And mine was
If I
Ellen.
forgot that I did Golden Girls.
Mine was Ellen.
Ellen.
Hey, this week we're going to talk about Ellen in Golden Girls in 9/11.
11.
Never
11.
forget, Kendall. Thank you.
Ellen was that was kind of it was happy and sad. It was like because you talked about her story, her full story, and that one was
It was up and down.
yeah. I got a little sad because she went on quite a journey.
Thank you.
So
She did.
You're such a good storyteller, Kendall.
Oh, thank you.
So anything going on this week? Anything happen? I know I was busy working, doing work stuff, day job stuff. I did my first speaking event this past week, and I got paid for it. Well, I mean, I've done speaking events before, but I
That was
got
at
paid.
AA, though.
Yes,
Oh, you got paid? Ooh.
I got paid. Who pays for me to speak?
Oh, she got money.
No, I did just pay my light bill.
This was, what was your speaking engagement?
I was talking to a local economic development group, and I was talking about employee retention, how to be a great place to work, which was the title of the talk. So I'm available for speaking engagements now. But the point is, like, never thought I would be a paid speaker. I still don't consider
you
myself
sing at
a
my
speaker.
wedding?
You're like Hillary Clinton.
I am like Hillary Clinton.
He's going to sing at my wedding.
Wait, how's that? I mean, I do a mean karaoke.
I'm not paying you, though.
Well, some things never change. But I think it was cool because now I can put on my
Exactly.
resume. I'm still waiting for the check, but it's been 3 weeks.
It's
They
in the
canceled
mail.
it after you spoke
been
during your
canceled.
speech.
Well, it's one of those things, like, I had to do some, like, it's a talk. I mean, I gave the talk that I know, but they wanted some special. I had to do some actual research relevant to.
Oh, so not like the podcast.
their
You
lo-
actually.
Right, I actually did research.
He
I-
does research
could've
for the
spoke about
podcast.
9/11.
It's just the day of.
Yeah, I did, but I had to do research because they wanted me to do a view of their, like, yes, all it's great. Tell us about what is a great place to work, but put it in the context of the city we're talking about. So I had to do some, like, data analysis, and so I was a little nervous there, not to analyze the data, but I'm like, is this what they want? Because
And you found all that on Wikipedia?
no, I had to go, like, do some actual research. I almost had to go to the library, but luckily I didn't. But nonetheless, like I said, I've done speaking events, but it's the first time I was paid, so now I'm.
It was good, successful?
Yeah, I think so. It was engaged. People talk. No one fell asleep, which is always my number one, like, sign of success.
Oh, yes.
Like, if no one falls asleep, then that's a win. Yeah, so look for it on my LinkedIn page. Now I can put speaker, podcaster. I'm doing it all. I'm living the dream.
You like having it all.
Just kidding. All of it, not just the tip. Hello. All right.
Nothing new with me. I'm on a diet, so.
You are
Well,
on a
angry.
diet.
Well, speaking of diet, I mean, I know you don't know anything about it because you're on this strict diet, but, Popeyes, they have the anti-hate chicken sandwich now.
Is that what we're calling it now?
Well, I
By
wasn't
virtue of
calling
not
it that,
being
but I
Chick-fil-A.
did read something this week where Mayor Pete, running for president, he was being interviewed, and he basically made a comment about he would like to bridge the gap between Chick-fil-A
Your
and
thighs?
the LGBTQ. I'm like, honey, there ain't no gap there.
You would,
Yeah, between
They're
your
stuck
cheeks.
together.
you would take that, huh?
They've rusted over.
So he wants to bridge the gap between Chick-fil-A and the LGBT community, and it was pretty apparent that he had no idea about the Popeyes chicken sandwich, which the article claimed, oh, this is like the anti-gay chicken sandwich, and
Wait, no, they said Chick-fil-A. No, they said Popeyes,
the Popeyes
was
was
pro-gay.
No, it was the Popeyes was the pro-gay chicken sandwich. Yeah. Sorry. Yeah.
Wait, hold on. Start that over, 'cause that's a big difference. They were saying Popeyes is the pro-gay chicken sandwich.
Yeah, exactly,
By virtue
yeah.
of not being Chick-fil-A.
Chick-fil-A, yeah.
Wasn't
But-
the whole article like he didn't know about the pro-gay chicken sandwich?
Yes, exactly. And so
Why would
Popeyes
Do
is
they have
owned by
Popeyes
this.
in Indiana?
It's owned by this big conglomerate like food
It's
company.
fine dining in Indiana.
And so I pretty much assume if they're pro-business, they're pro-Republican. I don't know, but
Popeyes?
well,
Probably.
yeah. I mean, the conglomerate that owns them is a big food conglomerate out of Canada.
Well, we just lost another potential sponsor.
Dum, dum.
You're the one that said it shouldn't be like pro-gay.
But-
It's like just a chicken sandwich.
But Popeyes started out as out of Louisiana. right?
Louisiana. Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Probably.
Al
though,
Copeland,
with Al Copeland.
yeah.
Yeah.
Can't imagine.
He was crazy. He lived.
He
I
was-
think actually he died a few years ago. But they loved him in New Orleans. He was this real eccentric
But was he a
character.
Democrat or a
I don't know.
I think he was Democrat, but he was Democrat in Louisiana at a time where the state was overwhelmingly Democrat. If you were very conservative, you were a Democrat. If you were very liberal, you're a Democrat because it's that whole Southern
Oh,
Democrat
yeah.
thing.
But do you think he would have been a Trump voter?
Oh, absolutely,
by
Yeah.
now, yeah.
for
Yeah.
sure.
So
They
Mm.
acted similar,
But
but
he
he
do-
was kind of weird and eccentric and full of himself.
But I guess
like
he
that.
doesn't own it now. Like, well, obviously
No.
No, he
passed,
sold it,
but-
yeah.
So sold it.
I remember like when I lived in New Orleans, the Garden District, Anne Rice is very, pro Garden District. Let's keep it historic. And so he bought like half of a block to tear it down and build Copeland's Cheesecake Bistro.
Mm-hmm.
And so there was this huge public feud for like a couple of years in the Times-Picayune. Like they would buy ad space and like combat each other.
Did you hear what happened at that Cheesecake Bistro?
No, what happened?
Somebody broke in and killed like 5 employees.
What?
Yeah, and it closed down for several years.
When
Wow.
was that?
Right after I moved, I had moved back there in 2002-ish, and I think it happened in either 2003 or 4.
I don't remember what it was over, but I remember like Al Copeland. He's like everybody knows him like in New Orleans, and his house in Metairie, like people would line up for blocks to
Yeah.
go for the Christmas decorations. He got in a public feud with somebody. I can't remember who it was, but he and his wife are just sitting at some restaurant some Saturday night, and this guy that he had a public feud with comes in, and they get like in a punching match in the middle of like some fancy restaurant.
It sounds like he would be Donald Trump.
Al Copeland and his wife?
No, Al Copeland and the guy he had a public feud with.
Well, you
Like-
know the chicken thing's gotten out of hand here in Houston. Somebody robbed a Popeyes and held him up at gunpoint, demanding chicken sandwiches
For a chicken sandwich.
What?
for a damn chicken sandwich.
Well, I do feel like I didn't even know about this chicken sandwich, that it was coming on the landscape, and
the
like
pro-gay
But-
chicken
But
sandwich.
Yeah.
it had been around for a long time.
You and Mayor Pete are the only
and
two
like
people
2
that didn't
weeks
know anything
ago,
about it.
everybody's like, "Oh my god, I want the chicken sandwich," but like they're sold out or the lines around the block.
I'm not
and
gonna
like,
lie, I
but-
went, but
but-
they were sold out.
But your friend Brian said, or our friend Brian, said that they've had it for years.
No,
What?
I don't think it's been years. But
Maybe they
what
changed the
happened was
recipe?
is I think Chick-fil-A tried to troll them online
And they're
about
like,
their chicken
"Fuck you,
sandwich,
bitch." Oh, there
and
was
then
a-
it really just brought attention to the fact, oh, Popeyes has a chicken sandwich, and it's pro-gay.
Wait, they always had this chicken sandwich?
Not always.
I don't think it's
know.
brand new, but it's become this.
Because like in the
obviously
last 2 weeks, everybody's posting they can't get it. They're waiting in line
Yeah,
for
'cause
it.
of social
like,
media.
which is funny. Like the little, because all these, not all these, but a bunch of them are franchised, right? So the little wars
Yeah.
that are going on locally between these restaurants. I saw like a meme or whatever of like a billboard from Chick-fil-A and then one from Popeyes, and Popeyes was like, People need to eat on Sunday, y'all, because Chick-fil-A's closed.
Right, closed
And
on
then,
Sunday.
Chick-fil-A, they shot back with, we don't run out of chicken, so, which I thought was funny,
Fuck you, Chick-fil-A.
even though I don't like Chick-fil-A.
Anyways.
I never liked Chick-fil-A, even despite their anti-LGBT
It's
stance.
easier for you
I
to
just never
boycott.
liked it. It was like, oh, we don't have to go
Now
there.
that bar Pegasus, on the other hand.
I did like that lemonade. I did like their lemonade, though. They have great lemonade. I used to treat myself.
Everybody talks about their lemonade iced tea and their ice.
I don't know about the ice.
Their breakfast burritos are good, but don't you dare go eat it.
The moms,
Because they might run out and I won't be able to get any.
the moms love to take their kids there. All the
It's their
the
pleasure.
moms that they would just be like, oh, they'd take their kids. I'd
Their
have to hear that
pleasure.
at like lunch at work back in the corporate days where they were just like, oh, we take our kids. To
Wait, you know what's... This is actually sad. When I turned, was it 30? All I wanted to do was go
Oh,
to
we did
Chick-fil-A
take you
and
to
go
Chick-fil-A.
bowling.
We took them to Chick-fil-A. and
Like
Like
a
in
little
two separate
kid.
places.
Like
Like
first we went to
Chick-fil-A?
Chick-fil-A
Yeah,
and then
okay,
we
yeah.
went bowling.
Yeah, me and Martha were very excited. We're like, you sure you don't want to go? Like, I wasn't 20. It wasn't 30 because in 30 we were in New Orleans. It was your 29th birthday, I think. But yeah, very exciting.
Do you not bowl much?
I like bowling.
I do too, actually.
There's a
For the
story
shoes, mostly.
that, well, to that point, there's.
Oh, that was the time we went and he said, what size? And I jokingly said size 2. And he grabbed the smallest pair, like thinking I was serious.
No, you said 10. You said 10. He thought you said 2, and so you said size 10, and he gives him a size 2, and so we get back these. Kendall gets back these little shoes, and I'm looking at him. We just started laughing uncontrollably because we're like, can you imagine Kendall? He's like, what? You're 5'10", 5'11", and then these size 2 shoes.
2 shoes. Oh my god.
Like, you just imagine someone. I don't know. To this day, I still laugh, but maybe it's funnier in my head than anyone who cares to listen. But yes, nonetheless, are we ready to talk about some gay stuff?
Anyways, yeah.
All right, let's do that.
So,
Why don't
Kendall,
you-
I'm here to tell you it does get better.
Why don't you kick us
It
off,
gets
Tony?
better.
Oh, thank God. It can't get any worse for me.
Better than your 29th birthday. So, this week in 2010, the It Gets Better initiative, campaign, organization kicked off. So, Dan Savage, for those that don't know, he's a columnist, sex therapist. He, has written books. He's a TV personality. So, this week in 2010, September 21st, he and his husband launched an It Gets Better YouTube video. And basically there was this wave of teen suicides, and most of these people that committed suicide were either gay, rumored to be gay, they were bullied. And he just thought, my God, if I could talk to these kids for a few minutes and just tell them, like, high school is a small part of your life. It's horrible. So he and his husband launched this YouTube video where they kind of talked about their experiences. And it's a pretty short video. It's about 9 minutes, but it's actually pretty good. And so he talks about his experience, which wasn't great, but wasn't horrible. He was from an all-Catholic family, went to Catholic school, and he just didn't know anybody that was gay. And so he was never really bullied or anything, but couldn't really come out. And when he did come out, his mother, first words out of her mouth were, "You're never going to bring a boyfriend home. I'm never going to meet him." So that was his experience. But then his husband, he talks about, he was from Spokane, Washington, which is mid-sized but very small town culture. And he had a very rough childhood and high school experience. Like, he was beaten up. Kids would, like, shove his head in the toilet and flush it. Like, when he was in high school, like, kids would defecate on his car. Oh. I mean, it was just horrible.
And now they do it on his chest, and he likes it.
No, he likes it.
He's into,
scat play.
So he had a really rough childhood, and he talks about, and his parents went to the school, and they said, look, if your son is going to act like that and walk like that and talk like that, we're not going to help him. And so he talks about this in the video, but they say, once you get out of high school, like, we both, like, through our lives have met, other gay people, you have community. And so they released this video, and it really sparked off this, it went viral. Like, everybody released their own YouTube video. So in the first week, there were 200 videos uploaded to YouTube. The second week, each YouTube channel
different people.
different people.
Right,
They
not
launched
just
their
him.
own YouTube video of it
Saying
does
it
get
gets better,
better.
yeah.
Yes. And so the second week, they maxed out the YouTube channel of 650 videos. So they actually had to create their own website and everything.
wow.
Yeah. And so it was, there were a lot of people that, said, here's my It Gets Better video. But there were some people that were like this one guy uploaded and he said, look, I know y'all struggle. I don't know what you go through because I'm not gay, but he goes, I know it's pretty horrible. And he said, there are people that love you. I guarantee in your sphere. He goes, I love you, and I don't know what you deal with, but I guarantee if you're struggling with this, there is somebody in your sphere of people that loves you. So do not do this. And then, some people were like, I didn't have the worst experience, but I was from there was this lesbian that said, I'm from a small town. I just had no lesbian role models. I didn't know one gay person. I didn't know anything about being gay. And so she actually turned hers into a video blog so that, if you're from a small town, don't know anybody, you can, have somebody to look up to, virtually and things like that. And I do think these are pretty important because, coming from a small town where you really can't be gay, if you do know somebody that's gay, they may not be comfortable mentoring you or anything like that. I don't know. So I do think it was pretty important. But they go on to in their video, they were like, here's our horrible experience, but we met each other, and they have a very cute story how they met each other. And then they went on to have a kid, and they have this good life. And they said in their video, they were like, life isn't easy, and it really sucks sometimes, and it really sucks being gay sometimes, but there's enough benefit that it outweighs the struggles. And a lot of people that posted their own It Gets Better video, they say, life isn't perfect, and but it does, overall it does get better. And it's kind of the common theme. So some of the themes in this were,
So, just a question: was this born out of? Wasn't there a suicide of some kid in New Jersey, a college kid?
There were several suicides.
Right.
there were, yeah. So
But I
there
was
was,
trying to figure there was.
yeah. So there was one suicide that really struck them, but in a very short period of time, there were several suicides where people committed suicide because they were gay and getting bullied.
Okay, this is what aggravated me though at the time, is that the angle in the news, because they wanted to make it a news story, is that there are all these recent teen suicides, and why are gay teens committing suicide? And they were always committing suicide, but you might have just found out about
Right,
it.
yeah.
And it might be a slow news month. And the It Gets Better campaign is great, but I knew I was frustrated because the angle that the news was doing was there's this sudden burst of gay teen suicide. What
yeah.
are we going to do to stop it? And when you focus on it like that, it's like, oh, well, if we're not talking about it anymore, then it's not happening anymore.
Yeah.
Because who's talking about It Gets Better campaign? They're still going on.
Yeah.
A guy
Yeah.
killed himself a few days ago because he was being bullied for having a trans girlfriend. I mean, it's all the time, and it's hardly ever reported in the news. So although the campaign is great, I think we need to be aware that it just because we don't hear about it anymore.
I would say that's one. So, because when this campaign came out, I actually didn't watch these videos, but I remember, seeing them on social media and things like that. And there was actually a documentary about bullying, and it was, I think, grew out of this movement. And there were, it profiled probably 5 or 6 kids that this one kid was a grade school student who committed suicide because he was being bullied. And basically, I don't know if he was gay or not, but he was being bullied to the point they kept telling him, you're useless, just hang yourself. And his dad said, I think he started to believe it because he hung himself. And then this one kid, he was not gay, but he had these thick glasses. He was tall and lanky. He was getting bullied. So there was this documentary about it. And same, I remember it was kind of went viral for a very short time. And doing my research for this, I watched several of these videos, and I thought, God, this is really empowering. That one guy that said, I don't know what you go through. I can't say that I've been there, but I know it's horrible. but there is somebody in your sphere of people that loves you. And so find that person versus like committing suicide. I just feel if like you felt you had nobody and this was like going viral and you saw it in social media, maybe it saved some lives. And same now, you hadn't heard about it forever. And I would say one thing. So when this did come out, there were a lot of people that were like, well, it's like middle class, white, gay male, that's what it's geared towards and things like that. And so there was a lot of backlash, which, you can kind of agree with. But one thing, doing my research, the website, so there have been a total of 50,000 It Gets Better videos uploaded to this website. And so if you go to the website, I mean, I do feel the concept is great, and it probably did save a lot of lives, like especially when it was going viral, and it is. But if you go to the website, it is really hard to dig down and find average Tommy Smith in small town that gives his video. There's a lot of celebrities. There's a lot of, and it's like a lot of celebrities that support LGBT people. But
there were straight celebrities that did it too.
Yeah, no, like Barack Obama. He's one of the first videos you see, Barack Obama. And I'm like, and he did a couple, like a month or two after Dan Savage and his husband. But one thing that was kind of cool there. So some of these, videos where there's this, I can't remember where it was, but there is an LGBT homeless youth, center. That, if your parents kick you out, you can go there. And so they did a video that kind of showed, here's what we do, maybe being an inspiration to others. And there was actually this 8th grade girl in Minnesota, and she saw some of these videos. She loved to bake, and she saw some of these videos, and she thought, oh, my God, this is like, cannot believe these people are going through this. So she started a bakery called It Gets Batter, and so Batter. And so she would make...
I thought that was a battered woman's shelter.
I was going to say, could that be for domestic violence?
No. And so out of this movement, she created this bakery, It Gets Batter, and she would make treats and sell them, and she would donate all of her money to LGBT youth causes.
What is that girl doing now? I want to know what she's doing now. Because you hear these stories all the time of these little kids, and so now you can kind of creepily track them. So I wonder is she running for office somewhere? So, huh? No, stop it.
We should check.
Because I'm always fascinated because you hear all these stories of these kids doing amazing things. I'm like, what happens to them? Hopefully they didn't go and off and do drugs somewhere, But I mean, everyone I'm sure can do drugs at some point and not become an
What's
addict.
wrong with that?
But my point is hopefully she's continued the momentum to become great. So
yeah.
Wow, that's
now she's cooking meth and not cookies.
Right.
One thing that's interesting too on the backlash. So I remember I was very involved in LGBT politics at the time. We would volunteer for pro LGBT candidates. And my friend George, he when this whole thing came out, he's like, I think bullying makes you stronger. Cuz he's like, if you live through bullying, it prepares you for life. And I'm like, I don't know what level of bullying he faced. For me personally,
was he part of the log cabins by chance?
No,
Okay.
he likes to argue. I guarantee if I was nice blue shirt and he's like, my shirt's pink, and I'm like, George, your shirt's obviously blue.
Wait, but I think he's kind of right though.
What?
Kendall, you should meet George.
Bullying makes you stronger? Well, I mean,
bullying is awful. Bullying is, it's what you make of it. That made me a better person. Being shunned as a gay, it either makes you stronger or it can tear you down.
My thing is,
so what I'm saying is, it's not good that it happens, but you can turn it into something.
I was gonna say, did it put you in a? I mean, there were moments where you were kind of in a dark place, though, right? I mean, where you were
yeah, but I don't know if that was solely because of that.
I just remember you saying there were times where you would eat lunch in the bathroom, because you didn't want to be bullied.
Well, I was just hanging out in the stalls by the urinals.
You were creating your own glory hole.
I mean, it's complicated. I think back on that, I was very sensitive, so I was trying to not show the world that this little gay person existed. So I would literally, this was in 7th grade, which was the peak, and I went to a school, Alamo Heights Junior School in San Antonio, where the people are just mean because they're raised by mean people.
All right,
but anyway,
shout out to San Antonio there.
Right, Alamo Heights. I think in hindsight, for a few years, I just tried to be invisible. Because if no one can see you and if you're not opening your mouth, they don't know you're there to call you faggot.
That's a good point. Were you severely bullied or so-so?
No. But I was sensitive, so it might as well. I mean, and looking back on it, I was pushing friends away. Like, people were willing to be my friend, but I'm like, no, because what if you're going to ask me if I'm gay?
But you were bullied. You used to people threw rocks at you and things like that.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
Oh, they did. Okay.
Called you the F.
That year, 7th grade was absolutely horrible. And I have never been around to this day the type of people that I was around in 7th grade at Alamo Heights.
And that didn't last like through high school and stuff. It was kind of a bad year or two, and then.
I mean, it did, not to the extent, but you have to hide yourself, and I was still hiding myself up until probably my junior year.
Okay, yeah.
I came out to my best friend when I was 15. And then when I was 16, I started telling, I had a job as soon as I was old enough to have a job. I told a coworker, and then by 17, I was pretty much out.
Yeah.
And once I came out, it was like, no looking back. Like,
yeah,
this is me. Doesn't mean it was easy. It wasn't like I was.
Oh no,
right,
yeah,
wrapped in a
yeah.
rainbow flag.
Yeah.
But I'd say 7th through 10th grade were. I mean, I'd lived this self-exiled, sad. Life.
And I think during that time frame, like as a person, you start to accept that maybe you acknowledge you're different. As a kid, if you're under the age of 10, you don't know. You may feel different, but you don't know what's going on. I mean, everyone. I don't think it's as easy to identify as something, but as you start to get older and have like sexual attraction, hit puberty and then I think your mind really you become very hypersensitive to the bullying that
when everyone's talking about their first kiss and who they have crushes on and they're dating and they're finger banging girls out by the dumpster and all that kind of stuff. I certainly didn't want to do that.
Right. I do feel like so I don't know. For me, I feel like I was kind of a dork, and like for me, I was not like severely bullied, but and mine was more. I just feel like
it stayed the same.
Ever since I was like super young, everybody knew I was gay, so it was like, I mean, I got teased a little bit in school for being gay, but it wasn't severe. My biggest alienation was in my high school. If you were in honors classes and you were smart, because it's small town, like they honestly think like, oh, if you're going to college, you're so stupid you can't get a job without it. And so it was literally like if you were in honors classes, you were kind of ostracized. And so that was like my discrimination in high school, more like I was smart. And so for me, like it wasn't severe, and so to me it's like, yeah, it's fine. It was fine / it kind of made me a better person because I was like a little bit reclusive. Like I had my group of friends, but it's like I'm just gonna study the shit out of this so I can get good grades, get scholarships, get an education, like get a good job. Whereas I feel some of these kids are so severely bullied. I mean, a grade school student like being so bullied that he hangs himself.
Yeah.
It's like that is severe. And so to me, it's like if you have a little bit of it does kind of prepare you for life because like people are assholes and like you have coworkers you don't get along with. And so if there's a little bit of it, prepares you for life. There's
always like one or two kids in each grade that is so bullied. It's almost like psychological. Like they have to have PTSD about it.
Or something, yeah.
Because I remember I didn't take part in it because I felt sorry for him. However, I also probably didn't stick up for them as much as I should have because they were a distraction.
Yeah, they were
made fun of more than I was.
Picking on you, yeah.
Maybe they had hair lip or a bald spot or something.
And now you've grown up and you have both.
I know. The only hair I have is my hair lip.
Don't bully. We're like a no-hate zone.
See, it doesn't get better. It stays the same or it gets worse.
There you go, huh? Well,
Yeah.
that's I remember that campaign. I think it was
We know who
very
the bully
effective.
was at this table. in high
Yeah,
school.
I can't say that I wasn't a bully, but I, like you said, I didn't necessarily step in when I should have.
Yeah.
And actually, honestly, I won't say that I wasn't a bully, but I think that there were times when I would have piled on is the wrong word, but yeah, I would say, oh, that's the gay kid over there. I mean, I wasn't mean to the gay
Yeah.
kid, but I was like, oh,
Yeah.
I didn't want to associate with
because I
You
feel
realized
like,
it was your
to be
reflection.
honest,
me.
in junior high and high school, or I guess any age, but if you're like, sometimes it's like, if you don't like, oh yeah, that's the gay kid, you're at risk of being alienated,
Right.
you know? And so it's like, you kind of have to, as a like survival.
And I don't even know. Like I think I mentioned this before. Like I got my dad gave me my old middle school yearbooks, and I have like written on some people like fag, and I'm like, why did I do that? I don't know. And I wasn't even. I think that's just how I grew up. Like that word was thrown around.
Yeah.
Not by my parents. My parents were like, you don't say those words. But like I had aunts and uncles, cousins who would just throw around. So then I felt okay.
Yeah.
And then of course boys. I don't want to.
But we give mixed messages, though. Like, for instance, my parents didn't talk negatively about gay people, but I also knew, I'm a preacher's kid. I knew it was not right. I knew it was something you're supposed to change if you are. So in 7th grade, the infamous 7th grade, there was this butch lesbian teacher. She wasn't a teacher of mine, but I recognized her from school. And in the yearbook, my dad wanted to see the yearbook, and I had circled her face and put Les, L-E-Z. And I know why I was doing it. I was doing it as kind of a distraction. Like, let me put the focus on someone else. And Dad said, why did you write that? That's not nice. And it was one of those like, oh, you're actually saying it's not nice to bully gay people. I don't hear that much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not even within the home.
Yeah.
And even like when you were saying, so one of these like It Gets Better videos, this guy, he grew up and he was gay, but he wasn't out, and he never really was bullied, but he said, ever since I was little, the term gay meant like, very like lame, blah, like, that's gay.
Yeah.
You know, where it meant just like, oh, that's kind of like, very blasé, lame. You know, so it wasn't like super negative, but it was like, well, that's just ordinary.
But
you
see,
know?
oh my gosh, that became popular about maybe, let's say
80s.
Well, I think it really, about 15 years ago, people really started, that's gay or so
Well, yeah,
gay or
there
whatever.
was actually one of my favorite scenes from the movie 40-Year-Old Virgin is the part where
You know how I know you're gay, yeah.
Paul Rudd, and Seth Rogen are going back. You know how I know you're gay. They're playing video games. You know how I know you're gay. To me, it cracked up. I was cracking up. Like that was how that resonated with me because that's things me and my buddies would say all the time. Like my male straight friends, we would say that all the time, and I didn't think anything of it. And then I meet Kendall, and I used the word gay, and he's like, "You don't use that word
because what you're saying is I'm giving you a horrible, like it's not in any way a compliment. It's saying you're so lame and busted,
Right.
and I'm going to call you something that you would never want to be.
Yeah.
Gay.
Right.
It's like how people used to use retarded.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
people
Heaven
don't-
forbid you're both.
Although I was shaming Kennedy the dog today because he's wearing a rainbow scarf and I was calling him gay, and then he got offended. But I was like, you know what? If I'm calling you gay, Kennedy, who's
Did
a
you bottom
dog,
shame him?
you should be okay with that because you should be proud to be gay. Like I feel though that the term is
It was
shit,
probably the way you said
if
it.
someone calls you gay now, it's like, well, yeah, of course. Thank you.
Thanks for
But that's a
noticing.
compliment. Like God has blessed
Wait,
me.
is Kennedy a bottom?
Kennedy he's a big one.
Didn't you
Ew,
see
how
his
do you know?
scarf?
Makes me wonder how you
Well,
know.
here I think Kennedy's verse because Kennedy always wears his scarf in the middle of his neck. Where we had this at our retreat a couple weeks ago. We had this big discussion on like handkerchief culture, and it's like
The
whether
hanky
you
code,
whether you wear it on the left or right means top bottom. Kennedy always wears it down the middle.
His verse.
Mhm.
All right. So
Fully.
Texting everybody.
speaking of verse, sometimes business owners can't be that versatile because they've got a lot of things on their plate. They try to be, but not always. But sometimes business owners can't do it all. And if you're a business owner trying to do it all, take marketing, for example. Nowadays, you have to have Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn account, all to put out the good word of your business. Who has the time to take pictures and write posts and get them posted online, let alone like, comment, share, and respond to followers? Don't worry, Economy Works is here to help. Let the Economy Works Talent Network help you do marketing so you can grow your business. Economy Works. When we work, the economy works. So find out more at economyworks.com. And hey, fans that are listening, don't be scared to click the like button on Economy Works on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, because Economy Works is all over the place. So with that said,
And it gets better.
it gets better. Kendall, what do you got?
Well, I was just talking about lesbians in middle school who had a bald spot and a hair lip. And I'm going to carry that theme.
Are they cute?
I'm going to carry that theme talking about Daughters of Bilitis, which was formed this week in 1955. It's the first lesbian civil and political rights organization. Have you ever heard about this, Tony?
I have not, actually.
Daughters of Bilitis. I had heard about it a few times. It was actually, I thought I wouldn't be able to find much topic on the topic. I have more notes. I actually
Kendall,
have a whole...
you have 2 pages, which is more than you've ever had in your life.
I have one whole Post-it note.
Oh, Lord.
Filled
We're going to be
on
here
this
all
topic.
night.
So Daughters of Bilitis was formed by a lesbian couple that met in 1950, Dale Martin and Phyllis Lyon, which...
Dale?
D-E-L.
Oh, Dale. Okay.
Yeah, which, I mean, might as well be Pat
I know.
on the lesbian name
Del Martin.
scale.
Yes.
What is Del short for?
Dolores.
Delores.
Yeah.
Ooh,
See,
I
you're
love
trying to stump me to
Delores.
see if I...
No, I was just wondering. I was curious. I'm like, what? I don't understand what that.
Curious.
What it was
Curious.
for. So.
So Dale Martin and Phyllis Lyon, they met in 1950. They became lovers in 1952 and moved in with each other on Valentine's Day in an apartment on Castro Street in San Francisco. Castro Street being like the epicenter of gay culture.
This was what, 50s?
1955. Actually, they moved in with each other in 1953. And then they were like, we want to go be able to dance with other lesbians and not get arrested. Because even San Francisco back in the day had laws to where people of the same sex couldn't dance with each other. They had laws that you had to wear clothing that was of your own gender.
Yes.
So you literally cannot wear pants and a button-down shirt.
And it was also like those laws were an excuse for the cops to be like, pay me or I'll arrest you. Like, because they were...
Yeah, they would raid. They would raid and check to see what you're wearing.
Yeah.
Sometimes they would do strip searches to confirm that you're a woman.
Right.
Probably done by a lesbian cop. But the reason for...
Gloria, tell us about that.
Okay, anyway, stop. Help me. Get me back on track, somebody.
You're sober, huh? Wow.
So the reason, and around the 50s, this was after World War II. It was the big communist scare, and it was during what they called the Lavender Scare, which was they thought that government employees would be susceptible to blackmail, and blackmail by the Soviets typically, to get secrets. And if you're gay, you're considered, let me see. In 1950, the State Department declared homosexuals a security risk due to blackmail. So you couldn't work for the government if you were gay because you were deemed a security risk. So a lot of politicians and cops would use that rule to raid, to bust up the groups of homosexuals, to say you can't be gay because you're a risk to national security and all that. So the raids on the bars and groups of gay people increased a whole lot more after World War II because of, like I said, the Lavender Scare, and because of these rulings that the government couldn't hire gay people. So she said, we just want a place to dance. So she invited some lesbians over. In the first meeting in 1955, it was 4 couples. And within a year, there were 8 couples. And they just got together and to socialize and to have a place to dance and meet. And then they realized when they were talking with each other that it actually turned into a place where lesbians can support each other because they were so depressed and just fearful Where do you go? You can't even go to a dang
Well,
bar.
I would say, we've talked about it before where, the gay community, like, even though they were ostracized and things like that, they were prejudiced against, like, trans people. So, and even today, like, certain gay bars, like, when BRB was here, they did not like lesbians. If lesbians walked in, they're
Right.
like, what are you doing here? So I can imagine in the 50s, maybe lesbians weren't welcome in gay bars.
Even amongst the lesbian culture, like there were certain, I don't know, I'm forgetting the story, but I know there was one group of like lesbians who were like, they didn't want like people that were actively advocating for LGBT rights, or gay and lesbian rights, I guess more so at the time. They were like, if you're gonna be doing all that, you can't come here because we're just trying to have a good time.
Yeah,
We're not trying to be advocates.
Yep.
Like don't because then you're drawing attention.
Right.
Right.
For raids.
Which is a struggle that I'll get into later that the Daughters of Bilitis had in the 60s and 70s, where it was like they were so old school because their original intent was to try to integrate lesbians into society. It was not a radical. This is the 50s. There was nothing radical about it. It was like, let's get together and be in the closet together, more so than let's change society.
because they were looking for a place to dance.
Yeah.
Okay.
And probably just a place to be together, like.
I just want to dance.
Yeah.
Well, the name came from Bilitis is the name given to a fictional lesbian contemporary of Sappho in an 1894 French poem called The Songs of Bilitis. Are you familiar with Sappho? She's from Lesbos.
No.
She was a
Is that
poet.
Greek mythology stuff?
Yes, she was. So if sapphic, you know how we call a penis phallic or phallus?
Oh, yeah.
The vaginal equivalent is Sappho.
Oh,
Sapphic. Because of this poet, Sappho, and I might be pronouncing it wrong. He's from the Isle of Lesbos. It was later deemed that a lot of her poems were homoerotic. So we literally call people who carpet munchers lesbians because they're from the Greek, using this woman.
Carpet munchers?
Because of this poet that became popular doing like veiled homoerotic poetry
Oh, okay.
that lived on Lesbos. Can you imagine like they named an entire sexuality
Yeah,
after you?
Right.
And a vagina, sapphic?
Oh.
That would be an insult for me.
Like, how famous are you that you get?
I know.
You're a big deal.
This
when
is
you
what,
get-
like a couple thousand years ago?
Yeah.
Dang.
So that's how they got the
Dang,
Dang,
Bilitis.
girl. Shit.
And then they got the Daughters of because a lot of
The bilitis sounds like a disease that you have.
It
though.
does. I'm like,
just have
what's this
something-
yeah.
My
I had the-
bilitis
I-
flared up
I have
again.
I had got a case of the bilitis.
in your Sappho.
Oh, my
Your
God.
Sappho.
And then the Daughters of because a lot of women's groups like Daughters of the American Revolution, Daughters of the
those
Confederacy, all
blessed
that. So they became
patriots.
Daughters of Bilitis. And they also picked Bilitis because they didn't want anyone to know what their group was
Oh.
because they were scared.
Right, yeah.
It's such
Oh, my God, yeah.
secrecy.
Yep.
One of the co-founders said if anyone asked us what the group it was a poetry club. Which, first of all, if I see a bunch of single women in a poetry club, I'm going to assume you're lesbian.
Really? I mean, nowadays.
I would say, unless they're like, I would say if they look like a nerdy librarian, it's a poetry club. If they look halfway normal, well.
So
I
women
guess-
have been doing this for years, then, huh? That first it was a poetry club, now it's a book club.
Well,
and
in
it's all an
19
excuse
I had
to
a
just
book
drink-
club,
It's all an
thank you.
excuse to just.
Oh, wait,
In
I know.
1957, they filed a charter for nonprofit corporation status, and then she wrote the description so vague that Phyllis Lyons said it could have been a charter for a cat raising club, for all they knew.
Cat raising.
And wait, that was
Those-
when in the
that was-
70s?
That was choice
This was
words.
1957.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So once again, they're trying to keep it secret, their
Yeah.
whole organization. And then their motto was French for on alert, qui vive, or I don't know. Oh, the intern thinks he knows. Look,
He's-
at the bottom.
He spoke
He's French.
Qui vive. Well, he gave me
He's French.
okay.
Who lives or what?
Tulips?
Who?
Like que viva in Spanish isn't that like? Why shouldn't I? I'm asking you two. Are you three? Oh.
Well, according to my research, the motto was on alert in French.
Wait, their motto is on alert.
Yeah, because they were so, and they had pins to identify other members because they were so secretive,
Like the handkerchiefs.
like the Hank code.
But-
Exactly.
I feel like on alert, like being a person who speaks to like develop a mission that describes what you're trying to do. Like if the mission is to be on alert, that's not a very fun fun mission for an organization. There's no embrace of like sexuality. It's be on alert.
But like I said, they were never radical. Like their mission statement was a woman's organization for the purpose of promoting the integration of the homosexual into society. And then in their literature, they didn't even use the word lesbian because it was such a bad connotation. They used variant.
Oh, really?
Which I've never heard.
Yeah.
I guess we're variants. Let's talk about variant stuff. But when someone would come to a meeting, the greeter would open the door and said, "I'm so-and-so." I'm assuming Pat or D.
Dell.
"I'm Pat.
Dell.
Who are you?" You don't have to give me your real name or even your real first name. So it was constant secrecy,
Yeah.
which does not really make an organization flourish. Although within 4 years, they had chapters in New York, L.A., Chicago, Rhode Island.
But I guess at the time, too, I mean, this was in the 50s, and there were a lot of laws against being lesbian. And so, like, you could get fired, whatever. And so maybe, I mean, if their purpose was to integrate into society, maybe that's why they had to be so secretive or... I don't like as DL as they could, right? Because it's like the more boisterous and
It's a fair
out
point.
we are.
Yeah, I mean,
It's like the more attention we're going to get if we really want to. But it is kind of weird that even in these meetings they couldn't be.
Well, because there was a documentary, I think it was a Stonewall Riot documentary on PBS. To me, if you take the stereotype of a gay man and lesbian, you cannot find pretty much, just going by stereotype, two more different groups of people. And a lot of the gay rights organizations were so focused on, for instance, police harassment is big for male gays, homosexuals. A lot of it was they were going to these cruising spots and arresting men. And the lesbians were like, "We don't want to fight for your right to cruise. Like, can you help us out? Like, you're making it hard on us."
Yeah.
So for the gays, it was about losing their job. It was about police harassment. Violence, all that kind of stuff. For the lesbian, it was about a lot of times the right to get a divorce, for one, because it was harder. So you're a lesbian. Now, what if your husband back then, that men controlled if you got divorced or not, refused to grant you a divorce? If you had kids with the man, what court's going to give the lesbian rights to kids?
Yep.
So the issues were completely different. So they didn't feel like really they had much in common with the gay men.
it had to be, like, when you think about being a lesbian, especially in the 1950s, it had to be really difficult. I mean, like, to your point, like the gays, I mean, there's a sexual urge, like an animalistic urge to go have sex, right? So gay men will go cruise and find that women aren't gonna do that.
And so I could see their point where, because I mean, gay men, if they like want to cruise, they want to be promiscuous, they want to do all this, and lesbians are like, we just want to live together. We just don't want to like get discriminated against if we go to the grocery store and we're holding hands. And so I could see them being like, dude, what we do is a lot more normal than what you guys are doing. Like, we don't want to be looped in with you, or we don't want to be burdened with your fight, because like they're fighting for two women getting groceries on a Sunday, where gay men are like, oh, can we have this orgy in the docks?
Right.
Yeah, but you buying the eggplant and going to the room of the back room of the grocery store. So in 1956, they realized no newspaper was going to let them advertise for meetings, even if it was in like a veiled wink, wink.
Oh yeah,
we're variants type of advertising. So they created their own newspaper called The Ladder. It was the first nationally distributed lesbian publication in the U.S.
Why did any significance of the word ladder? Like, why
I don't know.
They were climbing. It's a butch thing to do.
They probably built it.
There you go.
Yes.
And then that ran until 1972. And they actually had a convention. They became so popular that they had their first convention in 1960 in San Francisco. Around 200 people attended, and police showed up to make sure none of the women were wearing men's clothing, but they had been forewarned to wear stockings and dresses, so they weren't allowed. You had a room full of 200 lesbians, and not one of them was in pants. Can you believe it?
Yeah. It is crazy, though.
It's very sad.
Yeah.
Like, at every single angle, they're trying to find a reason to arrest you. In other words, to shut you up, because that's what arrest is. It's an intimidation of the minority to not ask for too much.
Well, that's like we talked about that with the Compton cafeteria thing, where like, you know, the men, if they had any, like, they couldn't even go into a woman's clothing store. Like, if a man wanted to do drag, he couldn't go into a woman's clothing store and try stuff on. He had to go there and buy a bunch of shit, take it home,
Probably stole it.
and then the ones that he didn't want had to take back, because it's like, you cannot use the dressing room to try this on.
Or he would buy his wife clothing.
Right,
There
yeah.
you go.
then
Buying it
he
for
would
the
wear
missus.
Yeah, but like, if he wanted to try 3 things on and decide which one, he had to take it all home, and yeah.
So it started in 55, and then in the 60s is when you had the Black Civil Rights Movement. Late 60s, you have the gay rights movement. You have women's, feminism, all that kind of stuff. So their mode kind of became outdated. They were deemed too traditional. And lesbians would write into the latter saying, like, you are not, you need to be doing more. You're not representing, you need to be fighting like all these other groups are.
Yep.
But that's not where they were founded. So
But that was, I mean, I think the LGBT, the elder people of the LGBT movement back in the 60s were all experiencing that. I mean, I think during the Stonewall days, like when they were going to have that first gay pride parade or march in New York City, like there was resistance from the folks, the elder people, saying, we're not trying to do that, right? We're not trying to, resist. We're just trying to integrate into society. We're not trying to rock the boat. And you have these people who are like, no, we have to rock the boat. If anything's going to change, we have to rock the boat.
Well, and sometimes the groups that were started to help gays hurt them, held them back. Like right after Stonewall, the groups are saying, wait, we've been doing this a long time, like Mattachine Society and some of the other ones. You don't want to go too fast. And then you have these young kind of radical rebels saying, excuse me.
Yeah.
You're just another system of traditional control trying to tell me what to do. You've got us this far. Let us take it from here.
I feel there's always that struggle, whether it's gay rights or whatever. There's the struggle between slow, like, let's just integrate and, and some people are like, hell no, let's shake up the whole system.
I was listening to a podcast, The Daily, and it was an old episode right around, well, not that old, but back in June during the gay pride events in New York City back in June. And they were talking about, there were 2 different celebrations. There was the big World Pride event, which was very mainstream, right? You had all these big corporate sponsors. And then there was another faction saying, we don't want any corporate sponsors. They didn't even want police, because they're saying the whole gay pride celebration in New York City has become so commercialized. And so, like, it's lost the intent of what the first, march back in 1970 was all about, which was, connecting with the community, advocating for rights. Now this is just now they're saying the pride celebrations now are just very excessive and commercialized, right? So I say that just because there's still that discussion going on. It's like, are we trying to, because the folks that like the commercialization saying, hey, we're being recognized, right? If in the 70s, if we had a big corporate sponsor saying, hey, we want to sponsor your parade in 1970, you probably would have been okay with that. But now it's like, well, these, the backlash on these big corporations is that they put up the pride flag in June, and they don't have any policies that support, or support LGBT folks or advocate for their LGBT employees. And so this other faction is like, well, we need to fight harder, right? If these corporate sponsors want to be in our parades, then they need to have policies in place that are going to support their LGBT employees. So I guess my point is that debate still continues within the communities.
And it will always.
Yeah.
But there were several different debates going on in the Daughters of Bilitis, to where they just, the founders just disbanded it in 1972 and said, we're joining the National Organization for Women, because a lot of the feminist women's lib movement kind of took on some of the because lesbians fought to be included in that. But a lot of the rights lesbians were fighting for were also rights that women needed.
Yeah.
So they kind of dovetailed
Yeah, I mean, in the
into each other.
50s, you were like the pink ghetto, right? Like you were stuck at home, couldn't drive. Like there was one car families.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
But even to that day, I mean, now you've got, again, going back to current day, like the Women's Equality March or whatever, the Pink Hats that started back in 2017 after
The Women's March.
Yeah, the Women's March. That had a bit of a schism too this past year because you had women of color saying, "Hey, this is we need to have our voice here as well." I mean,
right?
This is not just white women's equality. This is like black women are getting paid significantly less than their male counterparts. So we need to have a voice at this part of this discussion as well.
So the two founders, Phyllis and Dell, were such kind of like icons, especially in San Francisco, that when Gavin Newsom, when he was the mayor of San Francisco in 2004, started issuing marriage licenses.
Oh, yeah.
Before it was really legal for gays to marry.
I remember,
He was the first couple that they married.
Oh, no way.
And then when the California Supreme Court invalidated it and said all of this is meaningless because it's not in law, it was invalidated. And then when the California Supreme Court ruled that it was legal, they were the first people in 2008 to be wed.
Oh, no way.
So both times they were the first couple to be wed.
Oh, that's cool.
And then Prop 8, which passed November 4th, 2008 in California, that the proposition that made gay marriage illegal, it invalidated all new California same-sex marriages, but theirs stood because it wasn't retroactive.
Oh, okay.
But I thought it was, two very important lesbian pioneers that you don't really hear about. Dale died not long after they got married again in 2008. Phyllis is still alive. She was born in 1921. Still kicking.
Wow.
It's very interesting.
She's 1908.
To think that they lived in such a different time, but yet they're
such
still
a
alive.
different time. I mean,
it was that recent.
She was born in the 20s, which means she was out of high school like in the 40s, like in 39, 40.
And didn't start dating, what's her name, Dale, until she was in her 30s.
Yeah. I mean, and just like their whole...
You remember your 30s, Tony?
Vaguely.
Like they were last week.
They were a long time ago, and I have Alzheimer's, so we're battling both. But, I mean, just like... I mean, you know how it was for straight, like, women to be, born in the, 1920 or 21, and then it's, like, 1938 or 9, you're graduating high school. Like, oh, my God, it's like all you can do is, like, you find somebody, get married.
Well, and society was telling you your only purpose is to have kids.
Yes,
so if
and,
you're
like,
a lesbian,
be subservient to a man. I mean... She was born like when they got to the right to vote,
right?
Yeah, and so it's like, I mean, that's where women.
Can you believe that 1920? I think it's that recent.
I know. Yes.
Crazy.
It is crazy.
Well, that's my story about the Daughters of Bilitis.
Wow.
Well, that was amazing because I knew nothing about that.
I didn't either, so that was good. Very cool.
Thanks, Kendall.
Can I leave now?
And that extensive research.
You can go now. Thanks. All right, so September 21st, 1998. A date that changed my life. No, I'm kidding. I honestly, so talking about Will and Grace, that's the day Will and Grace premiered. And at the time when it came out, I didn't watch it. I would guess I was a college freshman, so I really didn't have a TV to access. So I wasn't watching it. It was not something that it was kind of. And plus, I was not associating with any. I was not trying to identify with anything gay. So it was a show that I paid no attention to.
Yeah, I think you avoided it because it was.
Yeah. Well,
I did.
And I mean, so that was part of the problem with the show when it came out, because so it appears in 1998, and that same year, Ellen, we talked about her last week, and her show had just ended, partly because the ratings were dropping, because of the
because she came out on her show.
Because she came out on her show, and everyone was saying, well, it's because that last season was all about gay rights issues. So then you have...
We talked about that last week, so listen to the episode if you haven't already.
So then you have Will and Grace, which is saying, yeah, we're gonna talk about that gay stuff some more, which is what part of what was very interesting and groundbreaking about this show, because they were trying to... Ellen didn't start off as a gay show, right? Will and Grace is starting off as a gay show after Ellen comes out. So
and they say it's because of Ellen. Like
yes. Well, Ellen said that on her
created a
show
space.
recently. With
To anyone that will listen,
she
she'll
had
tell you
Sean.
that.
She had Sean Hayes on her show about a year ago, or maybe earlier this year, and she's like, "Oh, you guys are doing another season? That's great." And he was like, "Yeah, you had a show once," and she was like, "Yeah, it was my show was the reason you could do your show." And he was like, "Oh yeah, I guess that's right." But Will and Grace, it's starring Eric McCormick, Deborah Messing, Sean Hayes, and Megan Mullally. So that's the core crew of the show. The show focuses on a friendship of a gay lawyer, Will Truman, and an interior designer, Grace Adler, and is set in New York City. Grace is coming off, the show starts with Grace coming off of a broken off engagement. Will's coming off a long-term relationship as well, living by himself. And then, we get introduced quickly then to their besties, or the supporting cast, Jack McFarland, who's the flamboyant gay and Will's longtime friend, and then Karen Walker, everyone's favorite gay best friend.
Karen. I love Karen.
And she's,
I want to be her.
interestingly,
her.
she's Grace's assistant, but she's a woman of money. She's married to this guy who's got
She's
millions
just bored
of
in the
dollars.
daytime, right?
What's that?
She's just bored, so that's why she
Yeah,
does it.
yeah. She just had nothing better to do, so she's Grace's assistant. And Jack and Karen, of course, they quickly become scene stealers along with Rosario, who's played by Shelley Morrison,
Beverly Leslie.
and Beverly Leslie. So yeah, but it would start it off. The show's called Will and Grace, and I think everyone loves Jack and Karen just as equally. Just on Jack and Karen, because there was always like I always asked the same question, like why don't they have their own show? Because they're always stealing shows. But at the finale, the first time this show was ending, Karen says in that finale, she's like, it feels like we're always, with just the supporting cast to Will and Grace. It's all about Will and Grace. She's like, we're fun for poops and giggles, but it'd be silly for a while, and not enough heart. So why they couldn't really have their own show? But nonetheless, that was I thought the answer to that long. They were in on the joke. But the early days, it aired on Monday, so it was against all odds, right? Because that this show was successful. Because again, you're coming off Ellen, who was canceled for being too gay.
Mm-hmm.
The ratings were lowered, and that's why. Everyone was citing it was too gay. But on a Monday night, which is not the big TV night,
Right, exactly. Yeah.
and Monday nights, what's happening on Monday nights?
Football.
Yeah. Oh, wow, I'm impressed. I didn't even prompt you guys with that. Like I
We're
figured.
really butch.
I
Did you hear the way we sang it?
lesbian.
Football.
Yeah, I'm like,
Football.
and at the time, what was happening in '98? Another big show, Ally McBeal. Right, so Ally McBeal was funny, and it
Seinfeld was
it
still
also on Mondays?
right? I think it
Seinfeld had
left
just
in
ended.
90s.
Yeah. But Friends had started.
Friends
right?
had started, but they were on Thursday.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
But so like you have Ally McBeal in football, and if you think about Ally McBeal, it was funny and like highbrow comedy. It wasn't like slapstick.
It almost makes you. Oh, sorry.
Go ahead. No.
No, it almost makes you wonder why whoever did that put it on Monday. Because, like, in my mind, as the week goes on, people have more and more time for TV. Like, Monday, you're like, shit, I just got done with the weekend. I'm getting through the day. I'm going to get off work, catch up on whatever is absolutely necessary, and, like, head to bed. And so I feel like Wednesday and Thursday you have more time. Like, and so it makes you wonder.
Because they thought it wouldn't be a hit.
Yeah, if they thought,
it was
this
too
isn't gonna,
niche
yeah,
and-
so let's like put it on Mondays.
Well, yeah, Ivy. So it was the first mainstream LGBTQ sitcom on TV, right? So again, Ellen was there, didn't start off on it, and there wasn't really anything else in that space. So this comes out portraying gay life, but the what appealed to folks is it was in a very naturalistic way, and they weren't necessarily cliches. I mean, they were to some extent, which is some of the criticism they got, but they just existed, right? It was normal life. It was these two best friends that were getting, you got to see their relationship evolve, and then there's, they're best friends as well. So, but it did get criticism, early days, for being like Ellen. They were talking about the gay thing, right? And so, throwing it in our face, or people's face.
To me, it wasn't funny the first season. It took a full season. By season 2, it was like, okay, the characters figured out who they were.
Yeah, I feel
I'm
a lot of
surprised
shows are like that. They're kind of like, because I feel like the first season, the characters are like, okay, this is what they wrote for me, and so they're trying to be, and they kind of like they have to get gelled.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, literally, Karen Walker had to find her voice. Because her voice was a little bit more high pitched that first season, and then the second season, it found like her Karen voice.
So I do feel like the Golden Girls, because I watch them all the time. The first 3/4 of the first season, every character is so extreme in their character. It's almost like mechanical. And I feel like about 3/4 of the way through the first season, that's where they kind of get a little softer in everything, and they
get into their character, right?
Yeah,
because the first one, they're like you said, they're reading lines, they're maybe
and they're trying to this is my character, I have to be
and then they start to be like, oh no, Rose is this, and the same thing. You saw that in Will and Grace. These characters started to find their mold. I mean, they also got feedback. I mean, so they got the feedback from the conservatives and the people that weren't comfortable with the gay, homosexuality kind of being out there in the forefront. But then from the gays as well. They were perpetuating gay stereotypes. They had a narrow view of gay life because you had an all-white cast, so no lack of diversity. Over time, you saw that none of the gay characters really had a love life, right? I mean, you didn't see Will didn't really date. There's one joke that Jack makes during the course of the season. It's like, America doesn't want to see you sexualize Will, so it's just which is probably kind of true. Yeah. And then of course they lived in New York City in these fancy condos and homes, so it's just it's a very again
idyllic
life of these folks, but they were loved for their comedy and their insight into gay life. I mean, this was taking gay people into people's living rooms every Monday and then eventually Thursday night,
and especially Jack, flamboyant.
Yep. Yeah, and they had this mix of slapstick comedy, but these scathing insults, and what really I think endeared America to the characters was this love-hate relationship they had with each other. I mean, you always saw,
which is very accurate between gay people and their friends.
Sometimes,
yeah.
To outsiders, it could look very mean, but it's just it's done in love.
It's a sign of affection. Yes. I mean, you saw it between Will and Karen and everyone in Karen, really, and then also Jack. I mean, because Jack could be annoying and Karen can be just mean, right? But the actors, I mean, to their credit, they delivered those lines with they're just an amazing sense of wit and the cadence in which they offered all their lines, which was really kind of made the humor unique. Early on, they started, even despite showing on a Monday, they were good from the start. They were, they grew to be a top 20 show in terms of ratings. They eventually
moved. Mine's gotta be a top.
Eventually moved to well, they don't want to be on the bottom 20. They would have not lasted 8 seasons. They eventually moved to Thursday nights on the must-see TV lineup for NBC. So they were
after Friends, right?
After Friends, so they got that was a big boost for them, right?
Do you know what year that was? How many seasons in?
I think that was in 2000.
Okay, so only 2 years in, yeah.
Yeah, so that was a big boost of confidence, for the show that they were doing well. Like I said, they were, they caught an audience quickly. It was largely, started off as LGBT audience, but they grew. Their highest rated show was A Chorus Line with, what was a show titled A Chorus Line. That was the one starring Matt Damon.
Oh, that was a good one.
Yeah, so that was their highest rated show. But speaking of Matt Damon,
Matt Damon pretended to be straight to sing in the all-gay men's choir because he wanted to go on the trip.
Yes, yeah. So, but I mean, Matt Damon's just an example of the numerous celebrity appearances they had. And you think about I was trying to remember and take stock of all the special guests, celebrities. To me, I don't know of another show that had this many famous people. You had LGBT actors and actresses. So you had Ellen, Coco Peru was on there, Wanda Sykes, Sarah Gilbert, Neil Patrick Harris, George Takei. These people, so they brought in the LGBT folks, but then they also brought in these legendary actors. So you had Lily Tomlin, who was also lesbian, but Gregory Hines and Gene Wilder, Candice Bergen,
Glenn Close,
Suzanne Plachette. Kendall, you want to tell a story about Suzanne Plachette?
Oh my God!
What is it?
In 8th grade, people would say, "Do you have a girlfriend?" In other words, when you're a little queer kid, you're like, that's another way to ask if I'm gay. So yeah, she goes to another school. Well, what's her name? Suzanne Plachette. It's the first name I thought of. It's the first name that came to mind. Because I think it was on Bob Newhart. I must have heard.
And
her
also
name.
at that age, nobody knew that.
No
'cause
one
she was
knew
an older
at 14
actor.
who
Yeah.
Suzanne Plachette was.
Exactly.
And it sounded so specific. They were like, "Oh, okay.
Even me, like I know the name, but I don't know who she is.
But what high school did she go to? Oh, it doesn't matter.
Oh, that
She's
was
from
Karen's
Canada.
mom, right?
Yeah. No.
She's
Karen's
from
mom was
Lafayette.
Debbie Reynolds. Oh no. Oh yeah. Yes. Grace's mom was Debbie Reynolds. And then another legendary actress from the stage, Patti LuPone, was on.
Yeah,
there.
well, she's one of the gay icons they brought on.
Yeah, Patty. My favorite, like I remember that episode she was on because he was Jack was like obsessing over like getting pieces of hair and
Broadway divas' hair to
well,
make a
not
wig.
just divas in general because he was talking about he got one from like Rue McClanahan or something like that. But anyways, he got her hair. But I remember this line he says. He's like, I don't, because she winds up spilling something on the floor and she has to go like in his lap basically to retrieve it. And she's like, oh my gosh, normally I'm only on my knees for when I'm trying to get a part. She says something like that. And Jack's like, I don't care what you say, Patti LuPone. Just the way he says it and delivers it was just like very funny.
Well, because Patti LuPone is considered the Meryl Streep of Broadway.
Yes. But I mean, so they had these legendary actors, but they also had these big name like straight dudes, like which was, and they went on there to, you could presumably putting their careers at risk. But it just shows you that 2003 was these early 2000s were an interesting time because you started to see these straight actors saying, "Oh, I can dip my toe in here and it not be I'm going to be typecasted as a gay person."
yeah.
So I mentioned Matt Damon, Kevin Bacon was on there, Harry Connick Jr. He was Grace's love interest. Yeah. Patrick Dempsey was popular at the time. Tay Diggs, Woody Harrelson.
I liked his character.
So you had all these people that were on there that I won't say put their careers at risk, but it could have been a risky move.
Yeah.
And they made it. And then of course you had some of my favorite like breakout like recurring characters. You had Molly Shannon on there. She was the psycho neighbor of Will. Alec Baldwin.
Oh, he was good.
Alec Baldwin's like, so my understanding is that they saw like the folks Tina Fey and company who saw him on that show. On Will and Grace, basically took that character and put him on 30 Rock. Like that was their inspiration for his character on 30 Rock. Yeah, Minnie Driver, she was fun.
Mm-hmm.
I loved her because
she's cute.
She was good. Like because it was very different. Because I remembered her from Good Will Hunting, and then she's this like sassy.
Now
English
she's Good Will
woman.
Hunting.
Yeah, she was Good Will Hunting. Yes, and then of course as you mentioned, well, Leslie Jordan. Beverly Leslie, yeah. He was my favorite. Like I loved he came in at like the most
my
sporadic
business
times.
associate Benji.
Yes. And then you had the pop icons, obviously. You had like you could go through the
that was just for the gays.
The gospel. So we'll start with Sir Elton. Elton was on there. Yeah. Elton John. You had Janet Jackson. You had J-Lo. You had Britney, Madonna, and of course. Do you believe in love after love?
Yeah,
Sure. Jack always did that impersonation of Cher.
Yo.
How was that? Oh. My favorite.
Oh, it's such a good show.
My favorite scene. One of my favorite scenes was when he was doing the impersonation in front of her. Like she comes in at the end of the episode and she's like, "I'm Cher" or whatever, and he's like, "Oh no, you're not." And he thought she was a drag queen, and so he's trying to like, "Oh."
And he's there with her Cher doll.
Yeah,
he's like, right.
He's like, "That's nice, but it's got to be a little bit more like, oh." And she's like, so she's imitating him, imitating her, which is just hilarious. But that she made other appearances on there, which was cool.
The dream sequence, yeah.
I'm surprised though that Madonna went on because Madonna is pretty like very specific. Now, of course, there are some interviews with the cast of Will and Grace when they're talking about Madonna being on there, and like she was obviously, I don't think she knew what was going like of Will and Grace because some of the actors were like she didn't know their names, so they were.
Oh, really?
I mean, because this was a little like.
It was a week of filming, and the last day she still didn't know Deborah Messing's name.
Yeah. Which that's Grace. Like,
Which there are a million. Every celebrity that talks about Madonna does not talk about her in a loving tone. Elton John hates her.
Oh, I feel
Cher
she
does
is
not
very,
like her at all.
Yeah. I feel she's very. I mean, she's very disciplined. Just.
She's full of herself.
Oh yeah.
Well, you think about it.
Love her music, but she's just all about herself.
She started in and when she was young, and
Yeah,
then, like
from
she's
nothing,
and
I mean,
yeah,
yeah.
but then since
But I
then
don't think
she's
that's
been-
because of.
But you get surrounded.
She was that person
Yeah,
at that age.
maybe. Yeah, you get surrounded by people who are telling you great all the time, and all of a sudden you start to just believe it. But nonetheless, we can save Madonna for another episode. So the first run ended in 2006 after 8 seasons. So had a long, vibrant time on air on NBC. Some fun facts about Will and Grace. It's modeled after one of the creators' relationship. So Max Muchinek and David Cohen are the creators of the show. So Max Muchnick, sorry, I said his name wrong the first time. He was dating someone named Janet Eisenberg at the time. They dated in high school, and they went off to college, and then he came out. So that was kind of like his that relationship is Will and Grace, Will and Grace. They won a lot of awards. This is one of the few shows that all of the actors on, like the core actors on the show, won an Emmy. So they all.
Oh, I didn't know that. I thought they were nominated but never won.
Nope, they all won. And Megan Mullally won twice, so she's the only one that won twice. Other interesting fact is Megan Mullally actually auditioned for the part of Grace, and she didn't really want to be. She didn't think about being Karen, but eventually, we know she became Karen.
Oh, I could not see her being Grace,
No.
but I could. She is Karen.
Yeah.
I mean, like.
And then
Wow,
Deborah Messing was.
They all play their characters perfectly,
Mhm.
starting on season 2.
And Deborah Messing didn't really want to be in the like she had to get talked into the role.
I always
Really?
think that's weird because a lot of actors and actresses say, I didn't want the role, I turned it down, blah, blah, blah. Or they leave after one season. It's like, but no one knew who you were, and no one knew.
Yeah.
For the ones that left, had their character die off, whatever. Like, they're never in anything else.
Yeah.
It's like these. Okay, you're gonna go back to what, being a server?
You know what's interesting? So, do you remember the lady from King of Queens? She was she was very rough and kind of
Rimney?
Yes, Leah Rimney.
Leah Rimney?
yeah. So
Rimney.
she actually interviewed
hello.
for Monica on Friends, and so she was so excited about this.
I could see that.
So she was so excited. See, I can't see it. And so she was so excited about this part and everything. She thought, oh, my God, I really want this. And she auditioned for it, and she said, I was so confident. I thought, God, I want this part. I killed it. And she said, I was walking out, and Courtney Cox was walking in, and I just thought, she's Monica. And she said, I just knew as I was walking out that I was not going to get it.
Yeah.
And I can see that. I thought Monica is like, I can't see her being Monica. She's a little rough.
She's my lead. Monica, I didn't watch much of Friends, but I've seen it enough to know the characters, and I think she brought the least to it.
But I also feel like the lady that was King of Queens, I don't think she could have been Monica. I don't know.
I think she would have taken a different direction, a more New York gruff.
Definitely. Oh, definitely. Yeah. Yeah. Versus the passive.
She's
Yeah.
one of J-Lo's best dates.
She's funny in real life.
Yeah. So
For a Scientologist.
as we know, the show grew to in popularity. It was kind of a long-standing, popular show in the LGBT community, but also in the pop culture. And in 2016, it saw what was deemed to just be a mini promo. Right? They did the cast reunited, so the 4 crew, Jack, Karen, Will and Grace reunited to do a special video just ahead. It was released just ahead of the 2016 presidential debate in September of 2016, and they had a little skit on the old set in the living room of Will's apartment, and they talked about basically they were trying to get people to go out and vote, right? And so it was a fun little skit. They got millions of views on YouTube, and all of a sudden the momentum started for a reboot. And so in 2017, there was the reboot that started. So they're about to start their 3rd season of the reboot, which will be their last season of the show.
And it's just as funny as it was before,
Yeah.
I think. And the reason is they brought back so many of the same writers.
Yeah, I would say I think this one's a bit more topical than in previous episodes. Like there weren't a lot of meaty topics. Like in the first run, it was funny. I mean, there was dating and divorce, love and breakup, but there was nothing really kind of relevant to what was going on in pop culture. Like they would make digs, which actually the first time I would watch it, when I watched it in my early 20s, in their first run, like I didn't like some of the jokes were like, oh, okay. They were making digs about George W. Bush, and which I agreed with the jokes, but I'm just like, really, like these come out of nowhere, or random actors, actors or actresses, like,
Forced.
Like it was
making
forced.
fun. They're like, yeah, Kendall, that's a great joke. It's such a great joke that George W. Bush also made a joke that failed, and it's like, what? How does that fit into this thing? But they would do it to just try to make a political point, and it was like, I don't know. But now they're more topical. I mean, they've talked on this new episode. One of their first episodes they were at the White House with Trump as president.
First episode.
Yeah,
I didn't like that one though.
Yeah, but I mean, still they were they were talking about something very relevant. They talked about gay conversion therapy. So Jack's grandson, Jack's grandson was going to a conversion therapy camp, and he went to go rescue him from that. They had a cake shop episode where, which I thought was an interesting twist on it, because they had Grace going to fight on behalf of Karen for creating a MAGA cake, and the cake shop owner was like, I'm not doing that. So it was an interesting twist. And then you've got both Will and Jack like actively dating, and they're talking about dating. It's not like, oh, we're dating someone, but they're talking about the dating as a late 40s, early 50-year-old, like dating someone who's 26 and being on the dating apps and those sorts of things. So I thought it was very much more relevant than maybe the other episodes.
Relatable to you, Tony, don't you think?
Since he's in
well,
his
I
50s.
mean, yes.
And of course, the cast is more diverse. I think it's a little forced at the point.
It's very forced.
Yeah, you see brown people and black people like out of
they get
nowhere.
like 2 lines, and you're like, it's almost more of an insult.
Oh my god!
Well, that's the problem, I think, when you're trying to like get all the diversity in. Like, it's like you don't want to be a punchline. Like,
it didn't help that Rosario didn't want to come back. She was like, I'm not coming back. I'm retired, and nobody's gonna bring me out. The actress that played her, no one's gonna bring me out of retirement. So they had to kill her off.
Which was my favorite episode of the week.
Me too. Favorite episode of either iteration, the first go around or this one.
Megan Mullally says that's the best episode written for her character.
Oh, she played it better. Her character.
Who is she,
better.
the maid?
I cried. I'm not lying.
Rosario, I did too.
I watched it by myself and I was bawling.
Rosario was her maid. That was kind of like her best friend. And
Yeah.
then she's at Rosario's funeral. And it's both a hilarious episode and very sad. And you realize more than ever what a great actress Megan is.
Yeah, I think so.
She's good. I love her.
Other than that, so your favorite episode of all time. Do you have a favorite Will and Grace episode, Tony?
He's never seen it. He's from Montana.
I've seen it.
Do you have
I
a-
don't
Every
have
time we
favorite.
talk, we bring up a
Yeah.
show. He's
Yeah.
like, well, I'm from Montana, and I didn't have a TV until I was 40.
So no favorite episode.
I
You
don't know
know
favorite
that.
episode. Yeah.
Well, I mean,
Karen is my favorite character. I do know.
But if we talked about, I couldn't point to a Golden Girls favorite episode. So
Thank you.
No offense. I'm not taking.
I can
any
list my
offense.
top 5.
But my
When they try to buy condoms in the drugstore.
that was last
Con-
week. All right. That was a good episode.
Calm down, lady. You just get out of prison.
One of my favorite episodes is the live one where they're in the bathroom. So it's called
that's a
Bathroom
good one.
Humor.
That's my second
I
favorite
think
one.
that's probably when I realized. I don't. Maybe it's too much, Kendall. But I was like, I think we're more of a Will and Grace and friendship than
relationship. This is why we were dating.
than a couple. Because it was just like I related us to more as like Will and Grace and Karen.
Because they argued a lot
Will
in
and
that
Grace and
episode.
Jack. Like to me, I saw you, me, and Martha in that episode. Like I'm like that would be the 3 of us doing that. like that's that. But it was
Really,
more of
because
a-
I saw you more as Rosario.
always you have. But it was just like it was one of those things that I was like,
But
oh,
less of a hard worker.
we are
Close to Guatemala, Rican.
really good friends, and we will be fools no matter where we go. Like that to me was like, but I saw us, but I can't figure out which one. I think of if I consider like you, me, and Martha as Will, Grace, and Jack, I think out of the 3 of us, I think I identify myself more as the Jack.
Oh, I'm more Will.
Yeah.
I'm a Will.
Yep. I'm a Jack and
Well, there's a Will, there's a gay.
Which is another favorite episode of mine because Jack has this line where they're trying to turn someone who just came out in their 30s and they're like, we have to gay it forward. So I will forever.
Wait,
remember
why are
that.
you Jack?
Well, because I was I say stupid things. Sometimes, particularly, I feel like I will say a stupid thing that you and Martha will be like, who says that?
All right.
Yeah.
In other words, you're dumb.
Yeah.
Is that what you're
pretty
saying?
Pretty much.
Okay, well.
Thank you. It just took me a long time to say that. Well, thanks. But anyways, my favorite show, it's the show I go to sleep to every night when Spencer lets me.
I'm going to watch him. I haven't watched it in a while. I'm going to rewatch it tonight.
When he's not watching.
Tony's never seen it, so he
when
should
you go
probably
to
watch
sleep?
it tonight. It's on Hulu now.
No, Sailor Moon. But yeah, so I was like, I had this stockpile of Will and Grace episodes on the DVR, and so when I moved from the townhouse and had to get a new box, I was devastated because I was like, I just lost, and I was living by myself now.
You did watch it over and over
I just
again.
lost my collection of Will and Grace episodes, and I was like devastated because I had 200 episodes recorded. That was the only thing I had on DVR was Will and
The
Grace.
only thing he
episodes.
owned of
And
any
then-
value.
And then, by God's grace, Hulu announced
Who
the week
knew?
later,
They're-
a week later that
they're incorporating
that all of Will and Grace episodes are on Hulu. So
Did you freak out when you heard they were coming back?
praise be. Well,
You're like, it'll never be.
He's like,
yeah, that's the thing. I didn't want it
Is
to.
it? Yes.
I mean, I don't know. I like there's something about the first. Like I will watch the old run over and over again and laugh all the time.
Wait, I just realized another good episode on the new iteration is when she broke up with the Alec Baldwin character. And they refused to have sex, so they would just mime it. And they're miming like nipple pinching and all this stuff, pinky up the butt, but they're not actually doing
this
it.
was Karen or Grace?
Karen
Karen,
and
yeah.
Alec
Okay.
Baldwin.
Alec Baldwin, yeah.
You would like that show. There aren't a bunch of old women on it, but
I'm gonna watch it. Okay.
Yeah, you should watch it.
I've seen it.
Tony, watch
She's
Will
Not
and
dig
every
Grace.
it.
episode.
It's got a legacy that lives on. So they've got memorabilia in the LGBT collection of the Smithsonian. The show is known for opening the door for shows like Queer as Folk. So these are early 2000s.
did you say queer as fuck?
Queer? No, I said Queer as Folk.
Fuck.
And folk. Queer Eye for the Straight Guy. And then even like kind of decades later, not decades, a decade later, Modern Family.
Oh, yeah.
Because of Will and Grace, you can have Cam and Mitch. And Billy Eichner says, he can't be Billy on the street without Jack McFarlane being who he is, like Sean Hayes being Jack McFarlane. So, again, paved the way for a lot of things. Joe Biden, when he famously when Joe Biden famously announced on Meet the Press his support for gay marriage, he said that I think Will and Grace did more to educate the American public than almost anything anybody has ever done.
But that pissed Ellen off.
People fear pissed who off?
Ellen.
Oh, people fear that which is different. Now they're beginning to understand. It lives on in logo and syndication on Wii, and then of course I mentioned Hulu. And they made a second run, and they're about to end that second run this next season. Again, my favorite TV show that did not start off that way, but I've grown to love. And at first I only liked Karen, and then I was like, oh, Jack's funny too, because at first I was like, Jack's too flamboyant. Will and Grace were utterly boring. But as I've watched the season more, like those episodes more and more, like I appreciate all four of those.
Maybe I
characters.
should watch it because that's how I feel. I'm drawn to Karen. I love her, and I feel like Jack is too flamboyant, and Will and Grace are like, eh.
Yeah, no, they all have their own like charm now. I get it now. So it's a great show. Sad to see it go again, but I understand. Things must end; they must run their course. So all right. So any other fond memories of Will and Grace? Tony, you got to watch it.
I've seen it. I just haven't seen every episode.
Wow.
God,
All right.
I'm hated
Well,
here.
I'm gonna go watch it now.
Internally judging.
Yeah.
Any
Judging.
podcast hiring?
Right. It's like, ooh, wow, are you really gay? Anyway, that's why we talk about gay stuff. But anyways, thank you for listening to our podcast and kicking with us. A special thank you to our sound guy and cook. You made some amazing Canadian pizza tonight, Spencer.
Oh.
Thank you, Spencer. Don't forget to subscribe so you can hear future episodes. Visit our website, letstalkaboutgaystuff.com. I was looking at our stats on our website. It says our GoDaddy, our website host, says we are performing well relative to other podcast websites.
Oh, that's
So
great.
good for you,
You
girls.
would pick GoDaddy.
Follow us on Facebook and Instagram, and Let's Talk About Gay Stuff, and on Twitter at Talk Gay Stuffs. Leave us a message and leave us a review and tell us what you think. And if you don't want to do it in public, we get some folks who are a little pee shy. You can drop us a line at Let's Talk About Gay Stuff at gmail.com. And also give a listen to our sister podcast, our Spoopy podcast. They have released new episodes, mini-sodes, if we'll call them that, that are called our Rupee podcast, where they talk about drag. In particular, they're talking about the latest season of Dragula. So if that's the thing you're into, take a listen to them as well. So we're here.
We're queer.
Get used to it.